Here. Director Pence.
Here. Thank you. We have a quorum. Are we in compliance with the open meeting laws?
Yes, we are.
We have comments from the public today. Board policy A0107 states that no person may speak more than once to an issue or for a period longer than 5 minutes, except upon the consent of a majority of the district board. No more than 3 people may be heard to one side of an issue, except upon the consent of a majority of the district board. During public comment, the board will not engage in public discussion regarding personnel matters. We do not appear to have more than 2 people speaking to any subjects. We'll just start at the top. I don't know if Lynette Harvey is speaking separately or together with Lisa Conley. What's your preference? Separately? Okay. Lynette, why don't you come up to the chair? Thank you for coming.
Thank you for allowing me to speak today. My name is Lynette Harvey, and I've been a member of the MATC community for 18 years now. I say 18 years, even though it's technically 16, because I worked for my first 2 years here as an agency employee, so a temporary employee. I worked for 2 years in various departments for this temp agency, a job with no benefits and low pay, because at that time, MATC provided great compensation and benefits, also a great working environment. For the past 6 or 7 years now, I've watched both the compensation and the working environment dwindle. I have also not had a raise in the past 6 years outside of a cost of living adjustment. And none of those were really close to the actual cost of living. I also see new people hired for same positions, making more than I do. And there's some mystical formula that is how people are placed on their pay range, and really no one understands how that works outside of anyone in HR. And I'm not able really to get a good explanation. I don't know how I can get a raise. There's no way I know how I move through the pay scale. Even if I get another degree, that doesn't qualify for a pay increase necessarily if I've already gotten a pay increase for anything rationally close to that. If I were to start working here today, I probably wouldn't stay here for 2 years to try and get in, because the place that I started at is no longer that place. And while things do have to change, it has not necessarily changed for the better for the employees or the students. If a team runs itself for 6 months or longer, while you hire a manager or director, you should not be hiring, you should be promoting. Many of our areas in which my colleagues, my advisors, and my retention coaches often were doing the jobs of associate deans. They were working with the faculty in their areas to come up with class schedules, making sure that students are in cohorts and that the waiting lists are moving through properly. These are all things that when we went to Guided Pathways, many associate deans did, but associate dean jobs went away. And so that work had to be taken on by someone. And that work, because it wasn't assigned to anyone, it fell to the people who actually work directly with the students to get that work done. Because if we don't have classes, if we don't have correct sections, we're not getting the FTEs. And my colleagues who work at our regional campuses have had it the hardest, because at our regional campuses, they do not have separate offices or separate staff from different pathways. So if you are to go to the South Campus, you are only going to get to see retention coaches and advisors for the community and human service pathway. They have been there since the beginning of Guided Pathways for 4 years, and there have not been recently, MCT has moved an office out to South Campus, but up until then, they were responsible for making sure that all of the students and all of the pathways were to see students. When we went to Guided Pathways, we were supposed to reduce that to be able to have a one-on-one student connection, but they've been allowed to operate for 4 years in this deficit, and it's still a constant revolving circle. And we talk about the compensation, you know, it's it's very much tied to FTEs when we talk about our budget. We generate revenue. That's what it comes down to. And if we are looking to increase our revenue, would we not increase the number of positions that generate that revenue, not adding more managers, directors, deans, or creating jobs for people that are not directly affecting our bottom line? To me, it doesn't make sense. And when we first got out of guided pathways, when we started our small scale implementation, which I was a part of, and unfortunately COVID hit, it became sort of like the wild, wild west, or I like to liken it to the Hunger Games. Because there wasn't a real plan for hiring, but whoever made the most noise or whoever was the most persistent was able to obtain positions, even if their numbers did not support that. I bring that up to say, I have a colleague who sits next to me who has currently been the only advisor for her pathway for the past 4 months, seeing 1,100 students. 1,100. The administration was made aware that the second advisor who was in that pathway was going to be taking leave relatively soon, and that they should focus on hiring another advisor and not an associate dean. But guess what happened? They hired an associate dean. Again, 1,100 students, one advisor. And during this time, while she's the only advisor, somebody who works above her decided it was a great idea to have a registration event. Who's going to help the students? She's already seeing students with appointments. Now you just have people just coming in, and there's no real time for her to see them. And now we have angry students who are well, why did they tell us to come in? And we're bearing the brunt of those angry interactions. And they haven't talked about any additional compensation for my colleague, Carmelita Sims, who has been doing it on her own for the past 4 months, nor have her direct supervisors even come out to ask her if she needs anything. Not a lunch, not flowers, not a cup of coffee, not peppermints, anything. And the response when one of them was asked was, well, she's never come to us and asked for anything. But basic human decency knows that if you see somebody with 1,100 students, they need some sort of help. But because, she didn't make enough noise, she just has been left there till today with 1,100 students. It's just unfortunate. And again, nobody knows how to get a raise. How does somebody move through their pay scale? And to have somebody with 1,100 students is just obscene. And so to me, that they've known about this for a while, just this particular one, but more positions in management are being added. And I just ask that if the advisors and the frontline staff are the revenue generators, getting students in seats, generating the FTEs, generating the budget that runs this college, that more respect and more consideration is given to what we have to do on a daily basis, but also to how hard our job is. It's very difficult to see these same students come in and out, day in and day out, and have to tell them, hey, yeah, I'm sorry, I don't know when you can get help. We only have one advisor. It's a rough road, and ultimately, our students are paying the price. When you have somebody who's been trying to get into programs, if you can't get them in because you have nobody to register them, it makes no sense. And we've done the same song and dance over and over again. And I just think we need some more innovative people, innovative thinking, and not necessarily how we used to do things. Leaders are inherent. It doesn't come with a PhD. You don't have to be a leader to you don't have to have a PhD to be a leader. And many of my colleagues have been overlooked doing the same work because they may not have the necessary credentials. So as we move forward, I just really hope that the board looks at having a better compensation structure here at MATC that can allow people to understand how they can be compensated, get a raise, and move through that, but also not working people into the ground. That's just unfair to everybody. And ultimately, if we're here for our students, we need to put our students first at every choice and decision that's made. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Lisa Conley?
I'm left-handed, so I'm going to sit on the right. Chairperson Foley, board directors, President Martin, and colleagues here today or maybe watching online, welcome back to a new semester. I hope that this new year finds you and yours well. To our students, thank you for choosing METC, and we are glad that you're here. As a follow-up to my remarks as president of Local 212, the union represents all the faculty and professional staff at METC. I'm here with a follow-up to my remarks that I made last semester. In addition, I'd like to share additional information gleaned from Local 212's Fall Concern Survey and related discussions we've had with employees since. You may recall that at that time, I shared a general overview that voice concerns could be assigned to 5 categories, and foremost being compensation and pay for work performed. Following up on the heartfelt message that my colleague, Ms. Harvey, just shared, I'm going to be providing an overview of what we found in our survey, which you're going to find echoed in her remarks, as well as, and people who worked with me in this room know that I come with some suggested solutions. A common theme in that bucket of compensation and pay for work performed calls for an improved pay system that is more transparent. Concerned respondents had not been informed or didn't understand how they were initially placed on the pay structure, or in many instances, how they are paid since. They would call for a pay structure that is more accurate. The occurrence of significant pay errors has been brought before this body before and continue. Together with transparency concerns, these errors breed suspicion and erosion of trust in the system. A system that is more predictable. Since its implementation in 2020, we have been hard-pressed to find examples where the current system has fostered predictable upward movement or progression of frontline employees on the current pay structure over time. Respondents frequently express frustration and anger for having been stuck with no real movement for years. My colleague, Ms. Harvey's remarks support that. To get a better picture, Local 212 has filed an open records request for data and identifying how many employees have experienced true progression over the last 4 years versus increases due to cost of living adjustments, or really fractions thereof, a position change or adjustments due to placement errors, job reclassification, and the like. Respondents called for a pay system that is more manageable. Shared experiences suggest METC systems and resources may not be able to support the current structure and processes, with staffing, IT, or other system limitations often provided by administrators as reasons for errors, delays, or breakdowns. A system that is more competitive. Over the last 4 years, METC has experienced increased difficulty in attracting and landing much-needed qualified job applicants or retaining them after hire. A growing exodus of our best and brightest established employees has also been evident during this time, spurring questions about the implemented system's effectiveness in this current post-pandemic environment, and to some, METC's dedication to serving students. And finally, they call for a system that is more equitable. Due to the lack of transparency and predictability, the purported equitable nature of the implemented system and practices has repeatedly been called into question. Additionally, the difficulties in attracting and retaining the best and brightest faculty and staff becomes an equity issue when one considers that our students deserve the highest quality of instruction and support. In short, the compensation system approved by the MATC board in the spring of 2020 and implemented to varying degrees for the last 4 years may be outdated and not a right fit for the post-pandemic universe in which we currently find ourselves. This is a concern because when the characteristics just shared are not met, the long-term health and the viability of the college and its ability to meet its mission are threatened. Therefore, and on behalf of the 1,500 plus MATC employees that Local 212 represents, on the behalf of all frontline MATC employees, I ask that the board consider a mandate for a collaborative revisit and reevaluation of the current compensation structure and its functions, one that invites, encourages, and empowers thoughtful analysis to ID and improve pieces that are working, and that supports the implementation of promising approaches that are in the works, such as the new part-time faculty pay structure, as well as creative problem solving to vision and vet needed changes that will allow MATC to meet both the staffing needs of today's complex environment and with continued collaborative effort, the opportunities and challenges of the future. Pandemic or not, presidential search or not, the work of the college must continue. Needless to say, MATC's frontline employees who do the work of the college upon which so many depend are up to this challenge, and we hope that you are too. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I have Elsa Elijah Holloway.
How do y'all do? My name's Elsa. I'm speaking on behalf of myself as well as a few other students who are at Westtown Green. Elijah Holloway is the name I wrote down on there. I have some of his prepared remarks that I will also be reading out. So last time these students spoke, they spoke about safety concerns and a lack of communication at Westtown Green. We were looking for follow-up with that in today's meeting. I don't know if that's on the agenda or not. I didn't have a chance to look at it. But we'd like to know more about what is being done to address these safety concerns. We do know that there was a random room check for students back on the 16th. I've not heard anything back about that. I do have the prepared statement, quote from Elijah Holloway. I recently had to meet with the student affairs officer, Michelle Lamar, on Tuesday, January 16th, in regards to a marijuana incident that happened. She told me that the property manager at Westtown Green had given me several warnings and talks, but he never had any documented conversations with me ever. When me and him talked during the inspection, I was told I would receive a follow-up call if he found any previous notices in my file. The only thing he found was some ashes on my desk, which came from incense, and he reported that as an incident and never got back to me. In my report, it said Westtown Green is a smoke-free building. My friend informed me that he notified the property manager that his roommate was smoking cigarettes in his unit, which he said the property manager did not take any disciplinary action against the roommate. For these random building checks, we're wondering if the welfare checks are going to continue going forward, if that's something that students can expect in order to keep safety concerns under control. We're also hoping that that is not just for the students who spoke at the board last time. So we have a few other questions I'd like to bring up before I go. I don't live at Westtown Green. I have plenty of friends who do. I deal with friends who do. Their concerns that are public safety are numerous, and I've heard many stories that don't seem like a safe thing that the college should be endorsing in the way that it has. I'll let them tell those stories when they get a chance to. But some of the suggestions from students who live there, things I've heard, student employment in the building, I know is a thing that used to exist on traditional campuses in student housing. They have RA systems and floor managers and things like that, people who can communicate and help assuage the concerns of students. Continued welfare checks, communication. Communication is actually the biggest concern, I think, from a lot. I have another quote from Elijah where he talks about, this is MATC should package the room and board costs of Westtown Green into the overall tuition to avoid students worrying about making rent payments every month. And so that students can have a better headspace, because if you have to worry about a roof over your head, then you're not going to be able to worry about school, which is a conflict of interest, because MATC's main goal is to make sure that students graduate and have an experience doing so. The concerns we hear from students most often are that they're not sure that the rent is being intercepted through which means, whether it's the Chakotah Scholarship or other financial aid. Sometimes they'll get a lump sum of money back after that process, and they're unsure whether or not that money has been taken out for the college or not for rent, which is sometimes left in spending it on other expenses that college students have, that we all know college students have. And then getting a bill later that says they're 4 months behind on rent. This lack of communication has led to issues and people accessing the FAST fund for immediate assistance when they thought they were good. Some of the system problems have been documented and were mentioned last time. I wonder, the college has a responsibility to students regarding eviction through student housing. If we are supposed to be setting students up for success, then I would like to see that as not a threat against students who are confused about their payment going forward or other concerns, maybe have safety concerns. That's what I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for addressing the board, all of you, and sharing your concerns. The board will not be responding to any matter in adherence to the state of Wisconsin open meetings laws, which prevents a governmental body from discussing any specific item that was not publicly noticed on the agenda. Our next agenda item is approval of the minutes from the regular board meeting of December 19, 2023. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
I will move approval. I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
I'm going to abstain because it wasn't at that.
There being none, would all those in favor of approving the minutes as presented indicate that by saying aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Minutes are approved. Next agenda item is approval of the consent agenda items. May I have a motion for approval of all of the consent agenda items in a second, and then we can see if we need to address anything individually. Is there a motion?
I'll move approval.
Thank you, Director Burse.
I'll second.
Any questions, discussion, etc., about the consent agenda items for this month? There being none, we have a motion by Director Burris and a second by Director Baker. Would all those in favor indicate that by saying aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any opposed?
Aye.
Was that yes, you are opposed, or yes, you vote to approve? Director Case.
I'm sorry, what was that? I approve.
Okay,
Aye.
all right,
No
thank you.
concerns. Sorry.
That's okay. Motion to approve the consent agenda items passes. Next are board action items. First is resolution F0300-01-24, authorizing the sale of 1.5 million general obligation promissory notes, series 2023-2024H of Milwaukee Area Technical College District, Wisconsin. is Justin Fisher here. So Fisher, please come forward and tell us what happened at today's auction.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair, would you like a motion on the floor so we can actually discuss it?
Actually, that's an excellent idea. Is there a motion to,
Why don't I move resolution F0300-01-24 authorizing the sale of 1.5 million general obligation promissory notes, series 2023-2024 H Milwaukee Area Technical College District.
is there a second?
Beautiful.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, we have a. I forgot something else too. No, we have a motion by Director Baker and a second by Director Owenmore. And now, Mr. Fisher, please tell us about the sale.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Good evening. Happy New Year. So as we were talking about, we took bids this morning and received some excellent results. In front of you, there's a presentation packet that I'll run through, and if there's any questions, don't hesitate to stop. So if you look at page 2, this morning we went out for the sale at 9:30 a.m. this morning and received 6 bids, which was excellent to see there. The low bid was a 3.0793% by Bank of New York Mellon. You know, nice to see a lot of the names continuing to show up month over month, and also seeing more and more participate as the market's starting to kind of settle in and starting to absorb that rates have hopefully peaked from where they have been, and that we're going to potentially start seeing rates start going down over the next several 6 to 12 months. So it's nice to see the bidders starting to come up and show up in a bigger group this go around. So that's page 2. Page 3 is a summary of the financing. General obligation promissory note series 23-24H, $1,500,000. It's going to close February 7th of 2024. A 5-year financing, June 1, 2025 to 2028. First interest, June 1, 2024 is non-callable. Eva myself participated on a more formal rating call with Moody's since it's the beginning of the year and they do a more formal process. Eva did a wonderful job, communicating the financials to Moody's, answering a bunch of the questions about what's going on with the college and so forth. And ultimately they went to their own internal committee and affirmed again, which is great news, the AA1 bond credit rating from Moody's. So that's where you were, and that's where we expected to be. So that was a good news for that end. And because of the strong bond credit rating, you received that such a low interest rate of 3.0793%. The next page 4, this is our continuing long-term financing illustration that we continue to model out for the district. When you look at this page, the left side of the page, that's your existing debt payments on an annual basis. The middle of the page is the fiscal year 23-24 financings over the period of time. And then the far right side of the page is ultimately what the debt service targets and potential future debt service may look like on an annual basis going forward. So we continue to be on track and hitting the targets that were set out for us. The last several pages, this is the bond rating report by Moody's. It really contains a lot of the information about what we discussed on our call and ultimately why they decided district should receive the AA1 strong bond credit rating.
Go ahead, Director Baker.
So my only question, is there any language in these last couple of pages that is any different than we have seen in previous months?
You're talking about the rating report?
Yes.
Specifically. So I did compare kind of side by side, and there really wasn't much difference at all from last year to this year. I would say that the one positive note to point out in this is at the bottom of that first page, which says sustained strengthening of demand that drives an improved enrollment trend. They are seeing that, the enrollment is continuing to be positive, and the declines, they aren't seeing that anymore. So, as long as you continue that, they're going to continue to view it favorably. And, who knows in the future if there's a lot of factors that go into getting an upgrade. I mean, you're at the second to highest level possible, but
And just to be clear, that's not what I was looking for. I just always look for language changes,
Yeah.
because small language changes can be indicative of things that obviously, you notice that they're looking for in us. I mean, that's a good thing to know.
Mhm.
But were there any other places
Nothing.
where the language changed?
No.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Isn't the summary paragraph at the top of this all new?
Not,
So,
they basically kept it pretty similar from last year to this year when you look at it side by
Okay.
side.
Okay.
They do absolutely try to change it up if if it makes sense, but for the most part, it's been pretty stable.
Any other questions? The people in the room? Any questions of the directors who are online? Hearing none, let's take a roll call vote on approval of resolution F0300-01-24.
Director Burris,
yes.
Director Case,
Aye.
Director Mendieta Ramos. Aye. Director Morton Lopende,
Aye.
Director Najib,
Excused.
Director Owen Moore,
Aye.
Director Pence,
Aye.
Director Baker,
Aye.
Director Foley.
Aye, resolution passes. Next action item is resolution F0301-01-24, authorizing the issuance of $1.5 million in general obligation promissory notes series 2023-2024I of Milwaukee Area Technical College District, Wisconsin. Is there a motion to approve this resolution? I'm sorry, I didn't see who that was. We have a motion by Director Mendieta Ramos and a second by Director Burris. There's nothing different about this from the usual. We're selling another $1.5 million of promissory notes next month.
That's correct.
Anything different about this?
No.
Okay, are there any questions or discussion about this resolution? Let's start with the directors in the room, please. There being none, are there any questions or comments from the directors online? Seeing none, would you please take a roll call vote?
Director Case,
Aye.
Director Mendieta Ramos.
Aye.
Director Morton Lopende,
Aye.
Director Najib,
Excused.
Director Owen Moore,
Aye.
Director Pence,
Aye.
Director Baker,
Aye.
Director Burris,
Aye.
Director Foley.
Aye, resolution passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next are the monthly reports. I'm going to start with the chairperson's report, and I'm going to forewarn you, you're going to have some dates to write down. We'll confirm these in writing to you, but we'll get to them in a minute. First, the Wisconsin Technical College District Boards Association spring meeting, which includes the annual election of officers for the next year and the Board of Directors meeting following, will be held at Nicolay College in Rhinelander on March 22nd and 23rd. The educational topics on Friday will include mental health, competency-based education, and tribal connections. Lodging will be available at the Holiday Acres Resort. Registration information is now available, is it not? Or are they still waiting? Okay, so by the end of the month, it'll be available. I'd encourage you all to attend and enjoy the lovely drive up to Rhinelander.
The dates again?
It is March 22nd and 23rd. I will be there. I believe Director Pence will be there as well. I encourage you all to attend DBA board meetings to meet your co-trustees across the state, and the educational topics are usually well worth the time. Next, at our February meeting, we will be joined by Tom Bordenkircher, Vice President for Accreditation Relations at the Higher Learning Commission, the regional accrediting agent for 19 states in the central portion of the U.S., including our institution. Tom attends board meetings and retreats across the country to emphasize the role and importance of maintaining accreditation for the college and the role the board plays in ensuring the quality of an institution through its governance structures. This is an opportunity for us to listen to and ask questions of the people who determine whether we continue to have accreditation. I encourage you all to be here, and I'm looking forward to it. Tom, I've met Tom. He's a friendly but no nonsense guy. Next, an update on the presidential search. In the packet of papers at your seat, you will see a list of ad placements which have been proposed by Greenwood Asher Associates, vetted by our comms group, is this document here. This is the list we are planning to go with. I'm not asking you to approve this list since the professional experts have provided it to us, but what I am going to ask you to do is to take a look at it and see if you think there is any place where we should be putting advertising materials about our presidential search that is not here. And if you would get back to me within, let's say 2 days, we can provide that information to the search firm we've hired and our comms team, and they can evaluate what the cost would be and whether it's appropriate to do that. But particularly if there are communities or sub-communities that you think will only be reached by advertising in certain publications or in certain ways, let us know that, please. Second, the profile statement that many of you provided comments on has been completed and is I'm not sure if it is posted or is it is now posted on the website under the presidential search subpage. The search firm is going to market as we speak, trying to talk to people. I think they've probably been talking to some people already, but they are making a major push beginning now and for the next 7 to 8 weeks. That results in schedules. We needed to get to this point before we knew how we could set particular dates. So please, I will circulate these in writing, but please take a look at your calendars and try to reserve these dates for your participation. February 13th is an anti-bias workshop, which is being presented by Greenwood Asher via Zoom, so you could participate via Zoom. It is from 4 to 5:30 p.m. on February 13th. Yes, Director.
Are these
Burrs.
different than the dates that we were sent the email?
Yes.
That one is not.
Well, I can't tell you that they're all different, but this is the current schedule.
Yeah, that
Okay.
one I think was already there, but everything going forward from that.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah.
Next is March 19th.
And do you want to, do you mind if I make a comment about that one?
Sure, go ahead.
Are you going to comment about each one or at the end?
I'll let you comment on this one.
Okay, cool. Just, each one of these are an important part of the process in the search. And as you take a look at your schedule and your ability, you know, we're trying to give people dates as far out as possible so that you can actually make time. This is a very important part of understanding how to interview candidates. The search firm who we've hired, this is one of the things that they do is help boards to understand in approaching the actual questioning of interviewees and how we view resumes to use an anti-bias lens when we're doing that. So each one of these steps is important. I wanted people to understand what that workshop was about. And it's not a long, it's like an hour and a half, so.
Is it in person? So.
We would like you to be here in person, but this one can be attended via Zoom.
Yeah, that one.
The one on the 13th?
Yes.
Okay, so it's in person, not Zoom.
We're we'd like you to be in person for
In
all of
person,
them. If you
yeah,
can't
like
make it in
what we're doing
person,
is-
we'd rather have you on Zoom than not at all.
And the presenter will be on Zoom on this.
So the
one.
presenter will be on Zoom for this
Got
one,
yeah.
yes. Next is the prospect review meeting on March 19th. The purpose of this meeting is to determine who, among all of the prospects and candidates who have been identified, do we want to invite to participate in the round 1 interviews. So this is an important decision-making meeting. It is scheduled for 5 to 7 p.m. on March 19th. Next, April 3rd to 4th are the round 1 interviews. Again, preferred that you be here in person, although we do expect the candidates to be appearing via Zoom to save travel costs and time.
April
This is April 3rd and 4th.
3rd.
At the end of this round of interviews, we are going to decide who is in the subset that will be the final 3 or 4.
You have the time frame, so the
Yeah.
3rd and the 4th?
All day.
All day, like
So-
8 to 5, or all day, like 8 to 8?
So it's a
I'm okay
very,
either
yeah,
way.
no, it's a very good question. Some of it will depend. So when we go through that prospect review meeting, so the search firm will get a lot of people applying for the job because we are MATC and we're cool. And despite our various boards, we're cool. So a lot of people will apply for the job. The search firm's job will be to look for the ones who actually qualify and ones who they think come close to qualify. And then they will let the board take a look at those to decide which of those we interview the first time. That's what the round one interviews are. So there could be 8 people in that. There could be 15 people in that. If we as a board say, so if there's 15 people, then it could be a day and a half of interviews. If there's 8 people, we could just say, let's do one long day from 9 in the morning until 7 at night and just get through with it. What we're asking people is to set aside those 2 days. But it would be really asking people to be able to take a day away from work to do this. There'll be 2 periods where where we're asking people to commit that kind of time. And again, Mark and I had this conversation more than once. Hopefully, in all of our tenure on the board, this will be the only time we have to do this. It is one of the most important things that boards do is hire a new CEO for your organization. And it does require additional time commitments. That's my rah-rah rant.
Thank you. Next date is April 18th. This is called the reference feedback meeting. Once we've identified, I'm sorry, I skipped a step here. The
No.
result of the round one interviews is a shorter list for which the search firm is going to do background checks, speak to references, and provide us with a reference report. And that reference feedback meeting, telling us what they found, is going to be on April 18th. We don't have a time for that.
We tentatively do have a 5 till 7 on that. I downloaded this thing.
Okay, it's been updated then, great.
Yeah.
So again, the decision, thank you, the decision that will be made by us at that April 18th meeting after we receive the feedback from the background checks is to decide the group of finalists that we will invite for in-person interviews on campus. The round 2 interviews are on April 22nd.
Potentially anytime that week.
Yes. It'll depend to some extent on the availability of the people we want to bring here.
And again, you may, if we,
I'm sorry.
the week of the 22nd.
so if we decide that there's really only 2 people that we want to have come in and we interview them and that tells us one thing. If we have 4 of them, that will be something else and they will go to they'll go to different campuses. They'll appear at sessions with students and staff and they will be more in-depth interviewed by the board at that point. So we're asking people to kind of stay flexible, and as soon as we have a good sense of that, we'll have those scheduled that week.
You know, we already have an unchangeable commitment during that week.
Is it 1 day?
It's a 2 days conference speaking at.
Why don't you send me those dates and we'll ask that they
Okay.
try to avoid those.
Try to-
Okay, and if anybody else has a unchangeable conflict, please let me know.
And to be clear, during that week, let's say there's 3 candidates. The board members really, your presence is really needed when we do the interviewing. You don't have to be here when they're going to campus, and there'll be some board members like retired people who can go with them to different campuses. But the key will be figuring out when we're doing the interviews and then knowing your schedule and being able to work around that will be helpful.
All right.
Did you have anyone in particular in mind when you were speaking of retired people?
When I raised my hand and said retirees,
Yeah.
for people who might not be working at the time,
Mhm.
or anyone else.
The last date that we have set is April 29th. from 5 to 7 PM, which is our decision meeting. Whether to offer a contract to one of the individuals we've been talking about or deciding not to. That will result in a period of attempting to have a contract negotiated between the college, probably through its general counsel and the individual. We have a regular board meeting on May 28th, whatever that date is. And I would expect us to have a vote on approval of the actual contract on that date. But hopefully we will be essentially done with this process by April 29th and can begin planning accordingly. Any questions now about that schedule? Okay, so we will
Get Outlook invites for all this, correct?
yes. We'll have invites sent to everyone.
Thank you both for all your extra work. Coordinating.
Okay. That's it for the chairperson's report, or I guess I should ask any questions before I hand the baton over. Dr. Barton, can you give us your report, please?
Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome back to our students. So great to have them in the hallways. A lot more energy for sure on campuses. Also to our faculty, welcome back to them as well. Speaking of faculty, we have a couple of faculty who have received really wonderful recognition. On behalf of the college, I want to congratulate two of our instructors. One is Scott Fizzler, who was named the 2023 Burrell Shoemaker Instructor of the Year by the National Institute for Automotive Service Excellence, an independent nonprofit organization that works to improve the quality of vehicle repair and service by testing and certifying automotive professionals. This recognition is given to faculty who demonstrate excellence for their personal dedication and commitment to students pursuing careers in the automotive service industry. In the past 10 years, Scott created the Peak Hot Rod Crew, an after-school club where students can work on their own cars and projects, very popular. Became chief judge in the Technicians of Tomorrow Skills Competition, helped develop the MATC Drive, a multi-million-dollar privately funded program to recruit students into the automotive industry, and helped design the MATC L. Purvis Peak Transportation Center at the downtown Milwaukee campus. I think most of you have seen that. It is a beautiful facility. He also created the MATC Community Diagnostic Days event, where students led by industry and alumni mentors offer free multi-point inspections to residents in and around downtown Milwaukee, and routinely visit schools to promote the auto servicing industry and MATC's training programs. I actually heard about that one of our faculty got this award by one of our state board members. Charles Barber recently earned the title of Certified Master HVACR Educator, a prestigious honor attained by fewer than 150 HVACR instructors across the country. Since 2004, only 142 educators have earned the comprehensive certification according to HVAC Excellence HMHE directory. Charles is only the second person from a Wisconsin college to earn this award. The first was for an instructor at Northeast Technical College in 2015, and now he is the second. Passing any one of the 9 exams offered would be quite an accomplishment, but to earn the title of CMHE and HVACR instructor must pass 7 exams with a score of 80% or higher. This is the highest credential that HVAC Excellence can confer upon an educator in this area. Having this title is a great accomplishment that helps the students to be confident that they are being taught with a high quality instructor. Charles earned his associate degree, this is the best part, from MATC, from our refrigeration, air conditioning, and heating service technician program, and took courses at UW Stout. He completed an apprenticeship and attained journeyman status as a union steam fitter, refrigeration service technician. Congratulations to Scott and Charles. We are really proud of them for receiving these well-deserved honors. Another one to we want to mention is Debbie Hamlet, who will be speaking in a few minutes. Comes from the Milwaukee Business Journal. They named Debbie Hamlet as one of Milwaukee's 49 leaders to watch in 2024. Excuse me, Debbie brings over 25 years of experience in public media and is well positioned to bring Milwaukee PBS into the future by adapting to the rapidly changing media environment with much of broadcast television audiences shifting to streaming. On January 17th, I had the honor of addressing the Milwaukee Women's Club, where I really had the chance to spotlight the transformative work undertaken by MATC and our foundation. Two of our Shakota Scholarship students spoke of the life-changing effect the scholarship had, and they really remarked on the incredible care and support that they received from our staff. We were also joined by Ellen Shakota, who was there for lunch, which was a nice surprise, as well as our chair of our MATC Foundation, Chanel Bird. I was joined by Vice President Laura Bray and some of her staff as well. After hearing from our students, one of the leaders at the Women's Club got up and said that we truly seem to heal our students. And by that, she meant we were really helping our students to succeed and lead better lives. And that was so true from the students that we heard from. We had a UWM signing event today. I, along with the Chancellor, Dr. Mark Money, Gateway President, Dr. Ritu Raju, Marine Park President, Bonnie Bearwald, and Waukesha County Tech President Richard Barnhouse announced a new collaborative agreement. Under this agreement, UWM will guarantee admissions to technical college graduates and facilitate the transfer of credits to UWM. And so this is really a great thing for our students. All associate degree holders from all of our 4 tech colleges are guaranteed a seamless transfer for at least 60 credits towards a bachelor's degree. So we're hoping that that will get them halfway there and they won't have to repeat any of the courses. So it'll save them time, save them money, and just make it easier for them to get into a 4-year transfer. At this time now, I'd like to introduce Michael Rogers. If you would come up. He is our new interim vice president, diversity, equity, and inclusion. Most recently, Mr. Rogers served as the director of advocacy and engagement at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee in the senior leadership role in student affairs. Michael was responsible for overseeing 4 advocacy diversity centers on campus and leading their overall DEI strategy. Michael, thank you for coming up, and I want everyone to get a chance to know a little bit more about you. If you could just give us some more about your background.
Awesome. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for your time. This is my 3rd week here at MATC. Excited to be here. As Dr. Martin shared, most recently coming from UW Milwaukee. I'm a native of Milwaukee, born and raised. Spent most of my career in Illinois, working at a couple different institutions there in the state of Illinois, and felt a vocational call to come back to Milwaukee in 2020, in the middle of the pandemic, which was kind of crazy in retrospect, moved my family here back home. But I'm excited to be here. I feel like my time at MATC is a part of that vocational call, being back here in Milwaukee, and I'm excited to help to move things forward in regards to diversity, equity, and inclusion, and continuing to serve our students well. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
And that concludes my report.
Any questions from the directors in the room on the president's report? Any questions from directors online concerning the president's report? Hearing none, seeing no hands. Thank you, Dr. Martin. Next is the legislative matters report, which I believe is being presented by Laura Bray.
Hello, everybody. I'm a little sick at home, so I thought I'd keep my distance, but I appreciate the time together. Rainey is actually in meetings this evening in the Capitol, and so she asked that I just give you a brief update. You have the legislative update that was delivered to you, and I just want to highlight a couple of things. One is that we're all waiting for the new legislative boundaries to be drawn, and that are expected to be drawn ahead of the next, the 2024 election, following a Wisconsin Supreme Court decision. There are several state legislative items that we are tracking And I can go through them. There's a number that are pending either in the state or Senate, but one is to establish a hotline for employers interested in hiring individuals with a criminal record. And then another, and that's a Senate bill with an Assembly bill match. Senate has voted on it and Assembly is pending action. Similarly, there's a bill that is relating to the earned release for inmates upon completion of employment readiness training programs. In both of these cases, they came out of a study committee of which Dr. Sadiq Esakaku participated. That second bill was available for, it's basically available for scheduling in Assembly and pending action in the Senate. There's a couple of bills related to cost of college. One is for tuition and fee remission for veterans, spouses, and children who are enrolled in both UW system and technical college. It passed in the Senate and is waiting for Assembly action. Next, there's a guarantee admission to the UW system and technical colleges bill that's going through right now for those that would be at a certain class rank within high schools throughout the state. It passed the Assembly and it's waiting in the Senate. We've talked a little bit about a bill that was specific to college, technical college district board membership. While it doesn't impact the board or our particular board at this time, it would require all the district board members be citizens of the United States. It's passed in the Senate. It's passed both the Assembly and the Senate. And it's pending action by the governor. There are two items that are specific for funding. One for manufacturing and truck driving programs that passed the Assembly and is waiting at the Senate. And then one specific to for a dental package, and that passed both Senate and Assembly and is waiting for pending action by the governor. Finally, there's a couple of items that are coming across that relate to specifically around DEI, and one in particular that would remove race-based preferences from higher education programs that we've talked about in the past. So far, it passed the Assembly and it's pending in the Senate. And then lastly, we actually provided some comment with the UW system on a bill that's specifically regarding the freedom of speech and the press for school-sponsored media. And the purpose of this is to try to guarantee freedom of speech in student publications. And we just thought we worked with the UW system on just better clarifying what is institutional sponsored media versus student publications. That amendment has been introduced and the Senate action is pending at the Senate. Last but not least, at the federal level, myself and Chair Foley and Director Baker are going to be going to DC as part of the national delegation that goes to talk with our legislators. There's one particular thing that we're looking at, and it really is based upon having more access to Pell for short-term credentials. And that is going to be the big emphasis of our conversations. So that is the update at this time. I'd be happy to answer any questions and relay any unknowns that I may have to Rami for further understanding. Questions?
Any questions from directors within the room? Any questions from directors online? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next is the enrollment report. Philip King and Ava Paulis Martinez. Welcome.
Good evening.
Good evening, Dr. Martin, Chair Foley, and members of the district board. During today's presentation, I will be highlighting spring 2024 enrollment trends. Next slide, please. This slide provides a snapshot of where we are in terms of enrollment as of January 16th. Please note that as I go through this slide in particular, I will be updating some of the information as of January 23rd, which is today. For spring 2024 enrollment is budgeted enrollment goal is 3,784 FTEs. When I presented this report to you as the board, we had 3,387 FTEs. As of today, January 23rd, we are at 3,537 FTEs, which is a big progress compared to last week. Given this information, I also looked at the year-to-date FTE, and again, our year-to-date FTE is 8,500. As of January 16th, we had 8,069 FTEs, and as of today, if we add up all the numbers, we are at 8,219 FTEs. What does this mean? This means that for spring 2024, we still have 247 FTEs to go, or 6.6% based on today's number. For FTEs needed for year to date, we will need 281 FTEs more, or 3.3% to meet our year-to-date goal of 8,500. We have to keep in mind that for our registration in FTEs and enrollment, we still have registrations taking place as we speak. We still have our 8-week and 12-week classes that we are going to register for, and our students continue to come to us. Our enrollment numbers continue to change week by week, and we will see that in shortly too. I also would like to point out that we will continue our efforts to ensure that we are meeting our goals, and it is likely that we will be meeting our year-to-date goal of 8,500 FTEs. Next slide, please. This slide shows, in particular, the enrollment funnel by week, and it breaks it down by spring 2020, spring 2023, and spring 2024 to give you a comparative analysis of the enrollment numbers and how they have evolved from week to week, but also from spring to spring. For the information that I provided to you, the difference between spring 2020 and spring 2024 was, one second. Okay, the difference between spring 2020 and spring 2024 as of January 16th was negative 285. I would like to update the number that we are negative 135 if we compare ourselves today from where we were in spring 2020. The difference between spring 2023 and 2024 was 199 in January 16th. And as of today, we are plus 349 FTEs. So as you can see, the numbers are changing weekly by week, and it is very nice to be able to get these weekly funnels on a Monday morning and be able to see the weekly progress based on registrations. Next slide, please. In this slide, we have the numbers of students enrolled by headcount. And again, it gives you a snapshot of spring 2020, spring 2023, and spring 2024. The weekly funnels that we are showing, including the past slide, also includes all students that are taking classes at MATC. We show enrollments for these 3 spring semesters, again, to show you where we are compared to previous years. The information on the screen was shared with you as of January 16th. And again, I will be giving you some updated information in terms of headcounts. When you look at the total headcount, one of the biggest things that I would like to report is that as of today, I am happy to report that we have reached 14,858 total headcounts. So when you look at spring 2020, we were at 14,468. So we have exceeded headcounts as of today. So we are officially also have increased our headcount numbers by 390 students headcounts. Why are we seeing these changes? Why are our headcounts increasing? We also have observed an increase in admission applications by 29%. So this shows us that our students continue to seek an MATC education and they continue to come to MATC and they are ready to come to MATC after the pandemic. We continue recruitment, admissions, financial aid, and registration efforts to make sure that we are not just only increasing headcounts, but that we are also increasing our FTEs with the end goal in mind of 8,500 FTEs. Next slide, please. This slide in particular shows enrollment of all program and non-program students, and it breaks it down by particular demographics. As you also know, you see the 13,000 number there as of January 16, but again, we are at 14,858 headcounts. As you can see from these demographics, they may vary slightly based on today's number, but the majority of our students are women, female identifying with 60%, or male identifying students account for 38%. When it comes to race and ethnicity, if you look at our Black and African-American students or Hispanic students and our white students, just those three populations account for 84% of MATC student body. And that is good to know because those are the three populations that continue to seek an MATC education. Next slide, please. For your request, we have also added the Hispanic Serving Institution HSI information. This information is based on the percentage of Hispanic undergraduate students among the total undergraduate students at MATC. For fall 2023, in the red highlighted area, we show that there were a total of 13,190 students. Of that number, 2,535 account for Hispanic students, which leads to the 19.2% HSI percentage. That is the actual HSI percent, 19.2. Even though our total number of Hispanic students increased, the percentage decreased because of the total undergraduate student headcount increased from 12,211 to 13,190. When you observe an increase in the number of headcount, but a decrease in percentage, it suggests that the growth in the specific category is not proportional to the overall increase in the total population. Although the HSI has decreased slightly, but 0.2% from last fall, it is good to note that the amount of the undergraduate Hispanic student population increased by 171. So even though it may seem like we are behind percentage-wide by 0.2%, we are still ahead in numbers. We are ahead by 171 Hispanic students from last year, which is a reflection of the work that has been done by the HSI committee under the leadership of Dr. Patricia Torres Najera. Strategies like Somos MATC orientations and efforts by the HSI committee continue to move the needle in increasing the number of Hispanic students not only entering MATC, but also being retained. Next slide, please. This infographic here gives you a snapshot of enrollment by pathway for program students as of January 16th. You will see greater numbers when this chart is updated for next month. But as you can see, it gives you the total of students headcounts. It also breaks it down to you by continuing students, new students, and returning students, which are all the students that encompass the MATC student body. You will also note that as you go through the different pathways, that the business and management and healthcare pathway are the two biggest pathways at MATC. We continue to see increases in enrollment in healthcare, business, and management, and manufacturing, construction, and transportation. As you can see, there's a clear demand for these fields, and students are continuing to seek MATC and education. And I also know from what I hear in the community and what I hear internally is that our students are happy to come back post-pandemic, and they are really looking into the healthcare and business and management fields as well. Next slide, please. For your request, we also added a retention and graduation rates to the enrollment report. Over the years, I would like to note that MATC team members, administrators, and frontline staff have worked very closely to cater to the unique needs of MATC students. We have increased various types of supports and services to ensure our students are being retained, but that they are also completing their credentials and their programs of study. In this week's presidential communication, Dr. Martin shared the following important highlights related to retention and graduation. And these two highlights are really related to the slide that you see on the screen. Highlights include, quote, the fall-to-fall student retention rate among first-time degree-seeking students increased by 13 percentage points between fall 2020 and fall 22 cohorts. The next highlight includes graduation rates. Quote, the 150% graduation rate amongst first-time full-time degree-seeking students increased by 6 percentage points between fall 2018 cohort and fall 2021 cohort. These data points are amazing, and it shows that we are making a lot of progress. I would also like to point out more recent data too. These data points show, for example, when you look at the retention rates, we know that our retention rate went up by 6 percentage points from fall 2022 to fall 2023. We also know that the graduation rate within the 150% of program length went up by 8%, 8 percentage points between fall 2020 and fall 2021. I will conclude that MATC's Enter and Stay pillar will continue to implement strategies to ensure that our students enter MATC successfully and that they stay on the path to success. Our Learn pillar and dedicated deans continue to ensure that our students are completing their courses and that they are also completing their programs of study. Lastly, the key to retention and completion is a holistic approach to student development and success. This concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Baker.
Yeah, just on the very last grid, the graduation rates. So it talks about 2021. So that means the students started in 2021. Is that correct?
Yes, for that cohort.
Yeah, so this is when the cohort started.
Yes. Mhm.
I understand. Okay.
And then the red lining that you see on top, those are the targets for FY24.
Okay. So these are all like different cohorts. So this is like the cohort of 27 who started in 2017. How many of them have graduated by now?
Yes.
This is all by now.
Yes.
Okay. It was a little
Current
confusing.
information.
Just a couple of questions popped up. When is the deadline for spring enrollment?
We have open access. So we have Tony, would you be able to, Dr. Martin, can I reach out to Tony for that question?
Sure.
Would you be able to outline?
Yeah, so Tony Talia from marketing, as Dr. Martinez Paulus noted, we're promoting applications all the time. And then so that's really happening year round. And then in terms of the in terms of the registration, it's really going to be the week of that classes start. So we have the 16-week and the first 18-week classes starting this month in January, then a 12-week class that's a set of classes in February. And then when the second 8-week class set starts in March, that's basically that week is when the registration would close.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for
Then,
your question.
Yeah, thank you. It helps understand. And then I had one thought, like, what do you think is most successfully driving some of those increases in enrollment to help to,
Yes.
know, drive that?
Yeah. In speaking with Tony and the team, particularly in recruitment, the recruitment team has done and continues to do a really nice job in paid advertising. And when it comes to paid advertising, it's not just only in general, but they also cater to the different pathways. So I think that's one big thing. For example, if you're watching public television, you will see some of those commercials pop up. And you can also see them in social media as well. So it's recruitment that is driving the application process and the admission. I also have to give kudos and credit to the admissions office here at MATC because they have been responsible for receiving those applications and converting those applications into admitted students. And that's the processing that happens behind the scenes that sometimes not everyone is able to see. That is not just a matter of applying, but it's also as following up with those students, making sure they have the transcripts and all of the information that is required of them. I also would say that in terms of registrations, I cannot tell you enough about how wonderful our advising team is and our retention team. Our advising team is fantastic. We currently have 38 advisors that are dedicated to helping students register for classes and pick their classes to be successful here and helping them on board. But I don't want to just single out the advising and admissions. I think that in my experience, what I have seen at MATC, it has been a holistic approach, a team effort approach that people really care for students here. When you talk to our frontline staff, and I have the privilege and pleasure to be able to work with them one-on-one now in my role, they are dedicated to our students. When you see our students walking the halls, our halls right now are packed with students. There's a lot of students everywhere. And our caring staff members and faculty are also very amazing at making sure that they are being onboarded properly, and also giving kudos to the faculty that are flexible and are very supportive of our students. So I can't just point to one little thing, but I will have to say that the customer service that we give to our students and the support that our team members provide to our students is critical to the pipeline.
Thank you.
Any questions from the directors online? Seeing none, thank you very much for the report and thanks for the progress.
Thank you so much.
Next is the Milwaukee PBS General Manager's report. Demi Hamlin.
Good evening.
Welcome.
Thanks. Okay, I was gonna start with a bunch of numbers, but I'm just gonna take the highlights out. As I know how much you love numbers. But some of note, we are about 392,000 ahead of last year at the same time, or 65% of the way to our goal of 6.7 million. And the two things that have helped us, our special events have doubled over last year. By doubled revenue over last year, and then also our planned giving is up $360,000. So that's what's making us go ahead a little bit. We fell a little bit short in December, but thankfully we're making up in other areas that are all up, but that's good. The Arts Page program will start to focus on producing segments for digital distribution in March. And that means we'll produce shorter segments to go on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, things like that, that get more traction. We have more of a digital audience than we do a broadcast audience. And so things are starting to shift a little, and we've known that for quite some time, but we still have a very large broadcast audience, but we need to feed the beast on both sides. Rhythm Cafe will roll out its second digital season at the end of February. 1036 will have a regular segment on mental health starting in February with Elizabeth Kramer, a psychotherapist for Aurora Health, and she'll produce something called How We Heal, which will explore education resources and real life stories on this often misunderstood topic. You may remember last year the Surgeon General declared loneliness an epidemic. So this is still very timely and very important subject. Our latest podcast, The Missing Piece, PEACE, on domestic violence will launch February 23rd. So we'll have, I think, 9 episodes for that. The end of the calendar year for 2023, some of our social media metrics are Facebook performed 37% higher than the previous year. The top performing post was the announcement of the Violent Femmes concert that we were producing. The Instagram account was 62% up over last previous year. And the top performing post was Rhythm Cafe with Invisible Man, the featured hip hop artist classic. So that's great to see Rhythm Cafe really getting some good numbers in. Our newsletter open rate increased by 6% to 28%. Normally, a good open rate is around 25% for nonprofits. So I feel pretty good about that. And our analytics are showing a strong interest in music and arts, especially when we feature local artists. And so we'll be leaning more into those areas this year. We're starting to produce segments on issues important to voters leading up to the election. They'll be featured on our local shows Adelante, Black Nouveau, and 1036. Some of the topics will include climate, immigration, democracy, and education. Our producers team met with Dr. Amber Wischkowski from Marquette. She's a political science professor, and she's in her third year of something she calls civic dialogues with students. It's a project that teaches students how to respond to people who have opposite points of view. It's very similar to something that we were contemplating an angle to tell stories leading up to the election about things that we have more in common than things we don't. And so this is a good exercise for us to learn what she's doing and see if there's anything that we can work together on. We have 2 positions posted currently, Chief Content Officer and Chief Engineer. We have total open positions of 13, so we will be posting more positions soon. And the last week of February, Mark, myself, and 2 community members, Dr. Julie Byler and Amy Daniels, along with PBS Wisconsin, will attend the APTS Summit in Washington, D.C. and visit our legislators together. And so that must be fun. We'll have lots to report when we come back. Yeah, it'll be fun. And then we still have conversations with strong interest from Judy Woodruff from PBS NewsHour, and also Margaret Hoover recently from Firing Line. And yes, she is related. She is the granddaughter of President Herbert Hoover, and she's been here a couple times. So she's a big fan of the station and have a really good talks. I just talked again with Judy Woodruff yesterday, and so she's getting her producer involved. And so we're moving right along, and we hope to have something exciting to announce shortly. So that's the end of my report. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Any questions?
I have a quick question. Those 30 positions that you have open, is that because of retirement? Seems like a large number.
It is
Or
a
is
large, it is a large number. I don't know, some of them are retirement, some of them just moved on to different places. I could find out. But it was open before I walked in, so that was all of those.
Okay.
I think we've been looking for a chief engineer for quite some time, for about a year, I think. We still have somebody who's acting chief engineer, and he's doing a great job. But we had cast for that, is my understanding, twice maybe before, and had failed search to find someone. Those are really hard positions to fill. Someone who knows about broadcast and IP, both together is very hard.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if you know anybody in engineering field, spread the word. Yeah.
I just texted it to my son.
Oh, great, great.
Not for him, but he knows a lot of video.
Yeah, you
engineers.
should pass it along. That'd be great.
Any questions from the directors online? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Next is the district student senate report, Kimberly Haynes.
Thank you. All right. Thank you, Director Foley. Dr. Vicki Martin, members of the MATC District Board and Administration. I am sad to share that the Student Government Associations and District Student Government Association haven't had any meetings due to weather break and winter break and weather delays. We are planning on meeting very soon. Student Life has been open, offering student events, coloring, puzzles, and origami. In Wisconsin Student Government, we met on the 12th of January. We are preparing to go to Madison next month for the WSG Legislative Seminar from February 18th to the 20th. At this multi-day experience, we will be advocating for technical college students throughout the state, the government representatives. Finally, well, we just want to take this time to thank you for the opportunity to share the information with you and to keep you updated, and look forward to the spring semester and continuing in this role. Thank you. And the report.
Thank you. Next, board monitoring activities. The first is review the board's self-evaluation instrument. If anyone has any questions about it, we can talk about those now. We are not going to be doing the self-evaluation until next month. Next month, is that right? Or month? I'm sorry, around May, okay. All right, I'm not clear about how this one progresses. Do we need, will we at a subsequent meeting talk about and vote on any changes? Okay, so we're just at the review stage now. So we'll schedule something where we'll talk about anything you might want to change in that self-evaluation instrument, and then we will use it in May. The Zansel update, we have information that was distributed in time for and with the intent of talking about it at the December board meeting, but we ran out of time in a particularly long meeting. Director Dacwa. I'm sorry. Vice President Chairperson. I've made you a director now. It's
Nice to see all of you and Happy New Year. So we did share the PowerPoint presentation with you along with the narration, so I'll be glad to address any questions. I do need to acknowledge, last month I did have the Vice President of Local 212 co-presenting with me, who couldn't be with me tonight. So my apologies about that, but I'll be glad to address any questions that you may have. He does have a personal issue that he couldn't attend tonight, so.
Are there any questions about the Zansel materials, Zansel issue?
Your favorite topic?
Let's start with directors that are online. Any questions? I don't have people showing. Oh, here, it's over on the side. Sorry. I don't see any hands raised. Questions of the room, Director Baker?
Well, just a comment that obviously this is of great concern to the faculty. And so the fact that the presentation came from both the administration and the vice president of the teachers union, gives me a certain amount of confidence that you're working together to work out the issues within the process.
That is correct, and I appreciate your comment. So there's been a lot of work with them, with the leadership from Local 212 and the administration as well. And within the presentation, I updated you on 4 things actually, and every single area we're showing progress. We're not showing completeness in every single area. Some it continues to be work in progress, but we are showing some serious work in every single key area.
Would it be timely and appropriate to get an update at our next meeting and try to have your colleague with you? That possibility?
We'd be happy to come back and just show.
Yeah, I think that would be a good idea. This has come back a number of times, similar but different forms, and I think we want to keep our foot on the gas pedal a little bit to make sure that progress continues. So why don't you plan on doing an update?
We'll be happy
to. And would you please put that on the agenda?
I think there's
All right.
a question.
Another
Yeah,
question?
just,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Just a kind of a follow-up on that, I think that part of the concerns that we've heard are part of the overall concerns in pathways and how we've taken different parts of our responsibilities and spread them and how people are or not compensated for that. And to me, it does seem that this falls under that sort of general sort of issue. And we, and I think today we heard it in a different way than we've heard before, also in our public comments. So very interested in hearing it and also kind of put it in that context, that this is part of us sort of sorting through our implementation of pathways and how people are appropriately being assigned to the different parts of sort of the academic responsibilities and the, functional responsibilities of getting our students into courses.
Sounds good. Sure.
Does that make sense?
Yep, it does.
Okay. Thank you.
Just so the board knows, I'm not sure if we've discussed this before, but I asked Dr. Martin to have the staff do an in-depth dive into what have we actually implemented, what have we not implemented, why, what do we need to do going forward to complete the guided pathways implementation? And I think we're expecting a report on that for the March meeting. Is that right? So that the question has that aspect to it as well. They obviously overlap. But I think it's important that we address that again before this fiscal year is out. Any further questions? Dr. Pence?
Do we have a budget number, or will you be establishing one as this progresses?
We don't have one as of today, but we have a sub-team that's working on it. We're working very closely with our finance team as well on this. So we're looking for a GL. We don't have it in place yet. And may I just quickly clarify, when we talk about the budget, when we talk to the team, they wanted to make sure that any financial issues is a result of my team, the academic area, working on this issue as far as the census. It has nothing to do with the budget office. We do have a budget allocated. It's combined with our instructional budget. We're trying to kind of, separate it out and have a GL for it, but they have nothing to do with any challenges that we have with census. So, I want to own that piece of it, and they're helping us really establish the structure for it.
Okay, good. Thank you for that clarification.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome. Thanks. My pleasure.
And next is the community education update. EVP Philip King and Sadiq Isahaku. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, Board Chair, Polly, board members, President. We do have few slides to share with you today regarding progress that has been made so far with our community education department. As you all remember, there were some concerns back in February about issues that students and faculty raised, and a subcommittee was set up to look into the issues and provide recommendations to executives team so that it will be brought forward and resolved. We have, as the issues were going on, you saw many people came forward, and we executed on many of the items that were raised and continue to do so. It's an ongoing. In this presentation, you'll see some items are marked green. Those are items that have been completed. You will also see items that are marked in yellow that are pending. And in the long term, we have some other issues or challenges that we continue to work on to resolve. There were 8 broad issues that were identified. And in the slides, you'll see the issues marked and what we have done in the short term and in the long term, with some notes for clarification indicated. If we can go and start from. Do you want to cover? Yeah, right. Yeah, I'm here with Philip to cover this. You can see the enrollment growth in that chart is a little small. I don't know if you can make it bigger. But, oh yeah, they have, the board has it. So you can see the pandemic effect. We pulled data from spring of 2019. So you can see the pre-pandemic, the pandemic, and the post-pandemic continuous growth.
And forgive me one thing, I think in front of you all, you have your chart in the reverse
Mhm.
than what's on the screen. So that was just we made an adjustment. So this is probably a more normal way to look at it, but just for clarity. So-
Right. I think Tony helped so here, Tony helped in adjusting it. I was explaining to him that I learned to write from the left to the right, not from the right to the left. So if you see my notes, paper notes, they look kind of interesting. Nobody can read my notes. But anyway, someone was able to reverse them for me. What you're seeing is actually what it is. This is the revised one. So it's correct. Fall of 2019 is the first bar graph you see, and it moves towards spring 2024, current semester. You'll see spring 2024 is one semester. The rest of them are we're still enrolling students. So that number is definitely going to go up. The spring 2024 enrollment for our CBOs, about 20 of them, that enrollment is done manually, and they submit it in about the 4th week of school. So number will jump up.
Community-based organization.
Oh, sorry, yeah, community-based organizations, yeah, acronyms, right. Next slide.
Before we leave that slide, just a very quick question. Given that the registrations continue, do you have some sense of where the spring 2024 numbers are going to turn out, or how our progress to this date compares to where we were at the same time last year?
My estimate is that we either will be exceeding our spring last year number or be around there. But I do not think we will probably get to our fall number. But traditionally, our fall numbers are higher.
And last time you mentioned that you don't close registration until the end, correct?
Well, yeah, it's loaded because at some point, if you say to the end, in the last week of classes, if you enroll a student, I mean, what instruction are they going to get before? So the question about when do we stop? We are an open entry, open exit program. We try as much as we can to accept any student who comes at any time. We're developing a model where we'll call the workshop model. They have had it before in the past. So students who come in late and cannot complete the program successfully have something to start with. So in the next semester, they are prepared to succeed.
Of the populations we serve, there are several perhaps that you've heard in the past that they have, I mean, for want of a better word, but lingering registration. Community education is one of those. They come in, we're engaged with them. You often get information from lists from the students engaged in the testing procedure, talking to your faculty, and those are gathered. Those registrations tend to come in slower than, to your question earlier about when are the last days for reg. This is a population registrations do come in more delayed than almost any other population. Is that fair?
That's fair. And as you know, when especially immigrants arrive, their most important thing is to learn English. So they walk in, they want to learn English, and we don't want to turn them away and say that classes are closed. But the challenge here is we may not have faculty to teach those classes. That's why we developed the workshop model. So one faculty would teach probably 20 or 30 students, and they'll use the individualized instruction model where they go and talk and help students individually. It's just not possible to set up the class and hire new faculty ongoing. Any other questions about that?
I guess I don't understand what it is you're doing. When you say we don't have enough faculty to serve them, so we're doing something else. What is that something else?
The workshop model.
What does that mean?
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I try to explain. So basically, we have an instructor who is agreeing to teach the students who come in late. So that instructor is in place. But the workshop model is not like a classroom where they go through a defined syllabus curriculum for 8 weeks or for 16 weeks, as the case might be. If they came in 2 weeks to the end of the semester, they would not be able to go through that process. So in the workshop, they are given a dose of what is going to happen, what the instruction they are going to follow, the introductory parts of the instruction. So they at least are doing something. They are learning some very basic English as the semester progresses to the end. But then they are enrolled for the next semester. So if students came at the end of spring, they will be enrolled to come back in the fall.
But it's still a live instructor instructing. It's not online or something else. Okay.
Basic English learning levels, there are levels 1 through 6. We traditionally do not allow level 1s and 2 to attend online classes. One, there's a language challenge, and secondly, most people also have a technology challenge. So we prefer in-person classes to those students.
Okay, thank you. Director Burris.
Just clarifying question, you guys have started it already? Like you've implemented this already?
The workshop model?
Yes.
Yes.
And you found success with it?
Well, you know, it's a model that they have been doing for years. This
Okay.
is not new.
Yeah.
So
I recall you saying that you were like kind of bringing it back.
we're bringing it back.
Right, so I'm saying you guys have found
This
marginal
spring.
success.
Yeah, this
We're
spring.
doing it now.
This spring, we are going to do it.
Oh, okay,
Yeah. Makes sense?
yes.
All right.
And our next slide was just ESL.
So the next, as ELL or ESL, as they call it. This slide, we have taken the total general education, community education number and broken down the ESL student population, because this is where most of the concerns were. And you can see the same trajectory, and you can actually see that the ELL students are about the majority of the students in the entire community education cohort, student body. And so this is where we are putting our emphasis in all the hiring and the scheduling. This is where our emphasis are.
So, so we use ELL and ESL interchangeably, because English language learners can be enrolled in a variety of programs. And the ESL are actual ESL classes. Do we use those? Is this data just showing us English language learners in ESL classes?
So in the ESL
Yeah.
Vocabulary, ESL has been discontinued in many places.
Oh, I see.
Right.
Okay.
So English is most of the time not a second language for many of the students. So English as a second language has been seen as a misnomer. Everybody in that class is an English language learner. They are learning English. It's not necessarily their second or third or fourth language. That's the reason why we're using ELL.
Okay, I understand. And so then just to follow up, so these numbers are though classes where people are learning English?
Yes, absolutely. Just those.
Got it.
Oh yeah, this graph is representing students who have come to us to learn English.
Got it.
And it consists of 6 levels, as I said, from level 1 through 6. Level 5 and 6 are the advanced learners. Level 1 and 2 are the beginning learners, and we have the intermediaries. So the courses are defined that way.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So you can see in the previous graph, the spring enrollment was about 4,600, and 3,100 of those students are ELL students. Significant number. All right. Let's move on. Next slide. So Philip and I are going to, this is our number 1 item that was raised. And the issue was that no single location for prospective community education students to ask questions, apply, complete an application, test, and get registered. And the solution that in the short term is to convert appropriate spaces to provide this one-stop like service. We are actually modeling that at the Walker Square Education Center. And we have identified some spaces downtown that possibly in the summer, that some construction, we have to work with construction services to identify funding for that to happen.
Make sure there are no questions on that item.
Well, I do have a question. What is the breakdown of the ELL students between downtown and Walker's Point? How many students do we have at each of those?
Okay, right. So we have the largest number is in two campuses. They're competing between downtown and Oak Creek. That's where we have the largest concentration of students. And then it's followed by actually West Alice is number 3. And then Walker Square and is number 4, Mequon is number 5. I have those numbers if you want.
Want the specific numbers? Anyone?
If you want specific numbers, I have. You do?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, if you don't have them at your fingertips, then you
Yeah.
can send them to us.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can send them to you so that we can move on. I do have them right there. Okay. Next slide, please. Right, we're going to take the.
Sure. And again, remember, if we go backward, these are the categories that were identified by that CEAP, and as delivered, that's what you're seeing here today. So staff, as opposed to faculty, that's the next slide. This was called out for us. And again, remember too, you're seeing in front of you what we're focused on, although there were broader recommendations coming from CEAP. Those are coming forward to President's Cabinet first. We're dealing with the short-term stuff that's right in front of us. Again, we've commented on that in that second column as the issue REL population comprises about 78.5% of the total CE program. And then ELL, as you've seen, has had a 25% increase from year over year. And so that's why we're trying to really focus on ELL. Short term, we're talking about adding staff. That had been their recommendation. And when I say first focus on admissions and testing, then on student support, again, what we're really trying to pay attention to is what you've heard from the students. As they encounter us, these are the first things they think about, which is I have to now deal with admissions, and we had a standardized admissions process. Then I need testing. And so we're just trying to focus first on get them in the door, get them, take the next step, and the person to support the next step. Then the next area would be for general student support. There are a variety of positions at the college with different titles. In CE, we tend to use academic support specialist and student support specialist. That would be the formal title of in particular a person at Walker's or others. And so we're looking at a similar position to add at the time. We have already added the testing person. They're in place actually at Walker's. It's a shared role where they're housed there, but they can bounce to downtown based on Sadiq's comment about the numbers, where the numbers come from, right? But we were paying attention to where we were hearing concerns as well. So the person is housed there, but be given it's 5 minutes away, they can go between both campuses. And then the support position, we're trying to work on that right now, just as a matter of what is the right position, given the variety of titles we have and the kind of support that's needed. Most likely would be general student services support. And then you see a long-term recommendation, probably shouldn't be highlighted in yellow because I don't think we met the goal for long-term. But I think what we're looking at is something having to do with scale. Given the scale and size of the growth of this pathway, CE is its own pathway, how does that then relate back to the size of the other units? And then potentially as we're adding positions, how do we manage adding them in a scalable way? And at the same time, I'll stop there for a second and say this, so a lot of our discovery has to do with, as you've heard before, there's a time-intensive amount of care and attention that need to go to a student, potentially ELL, that also needs technology support. So our scaled model won't be the same caseload size per se, right? So you might get that at, might say a 500 to 1 in an advisor ratio in a pathway. For CE or ELL, it would be much less because they just need a lot of support to get them through those steps. And so we'll continue to assess that model. We'll add that to our budgeting process coming up in the next month and a half as we request additional positions.
Next slide, please. I'll take this one, faculty shortages. Another issue that was raised. And in the short term, you see it's in green. We've hired 2 full-time faculty in fall of 23. And then 4 were hired LTE were hired in fall 23 in addition to the 2. So you saw that. Our long term is the 4 that were hired as LTE to seek to make those full-time faculty. And because those LTE positions will expire in May. We also look into, in addition to the 4 full-time that we are seeking, we're going to make our request as soon as the request window opens. We are also going to request 2 additional LTE in ESL. And we'll continue to manage our part-time pool. Our part-time pool is growing. We have kept it open, and we continue to interview for part-time faculty to ELL. Next slide.
Let's back up just 1 second, please. I'm not sure I understand the cell highlighted in yellow at the bottom. So continue to manage a large part-time pool. We talked last meeting or the one before about creating a pool of people and seeing who's available on terms as they come up. But then it says, by ensuring permanent associate dean and director at WEC to manage, is there a permanent associate dean, or you're looking for one, or you're looking to budget for one, you're not looking for one yet?
We have a vacancy, and we're going to
I'm sorry,
we have a vacancy.
You have a vacancy.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's budgeted, but it's not filled.
In 2 different things, associate dean budgeted.
Yep.
Posted twice during summer to fall, failed search twice, it is budgeted. So we're going to go out again in recruitment. And the director for WEC, we identified that there'll be a crossover position where they're managing the Walker Square, and half of the job though is CE support. So it's really facilities and then CE based on the size of the program that Sadiq is managing. Again, funded, it is funded, and we have to go to post, and we want to post both at the same time and go for a larger, broader recruitment working with HR.
Okay.
We want to look out to communities where we can find individuals who are qualified. And most of the time, when we are looking at Walker Square, we're looking for bilingual people who speak to at least Spanish and English.
Okay, thank you.
Next slide. This is the application process, and we have been fortunate to have some brain power in IT to help us map this out. Charlotte has gone through every campus and interviewed the admissions services personnel and ELL faculty and staff to gather information, and is working on a model for us. But at this point, we're working very diligently to ensure that the process is mapped out well and everybody knows what it is, and it is executed in each campus and at Walker Square, so that we don't have differences in the way we admit and process student applications.
So how does that work in this sense? So you have someone in front of you who is an ELL student and is deemed to have a low level of technology skills. So you take the application on paper, does it then get input to the system? So the difference is they're inputting to paper rather than inputting to the system.
Yes, yeah, very manual.
But it all ends up in the database and is processed from there.
Yes, it's a manual process. We know that the students cannot go online and complete the application, even though it's in multiple languages. And it's a very lengthy application because some of the data that we collect initially is for state reporting purposes. We cannot not collect that data. So what we have decided to do is to go back to a 2-application process, the very simple application process, maybe 6 questions, to collect the data that we need for this individual to get a student ID and then to test. And then we place them in class in 2 weeks. During the first 2 weeks of class, the instructor, the ed assistant, our staff will then work with individual students to enter the full data that we need into the system.
Do we have a resolution for the problem of the question about residency that was raised earlier?
Yes, it is in a different slide. We
It's at the
will
bottom.
get to that.
It's on the bottom.
Yeah, we're removing, oh, okay, yeah. We're removing the $2 application fee, which was an issue, but yeah. Requesting to the removal. We're also working to remove the residence. We thought it was going to be an easy process, but I understand we need that for state reporting as well.
Yeah, but again, this is a separate, this is distinct issues here. So one is, what do we call it on the page or on the paper that gives rise to the anxiety? We don't need to call, I don't think we need to call it residency or whatever the term is that's causing the problem at that stage. We simply have to report it that way into the database. So I just don't think we have to wait until we get approval from the state in order to solve the data collection problem as opposed to the data input problem.
That's what the state calls it. State calls it the risk.
I know that's what they call it, but do we have to call it that on our piece of paper? Do we have to call it that in our electronic system? Or do we only need to report it to that field in the state database as residency?
So apparently what you're saying is what we are trying to do. We're trying to remove it actually from our application process, but to put it in our reporting system. That's what we're trying to do.
You could rephrase it. You could rephrase it.
Right.
To avoid the confusion.
So for instance, could the question be, do you live in the state of Wisconsin? Because if you said that to me, I wouldn't think you were asking me if I was a resident of the country and have appropriate papers to be a resident of the country.
Right.
Or was, documented in that sense.
Right.
Can we ask that question
That's
and
what
then
I'm
when
asking
we
you.
input it, we call that residency?
Right, we could. So it's a little more complicated in collecting the data because if we ask the individual, do you live in the state of Wisconsin, which is what we ask. We don't use the word residence.
Oh.
Okay. Do you live in the state of Wisconsin? They will say yes, right? And the address we put, there is a system check that throws back and say, this person has an address, their last address was. So it's possible that when they move to the state of Wisconsin, they didn't change an address.
Mm.
So that becomes an error in our system. And we have to go in manually to report that. It's a little
Where's
bit.
that database coming from? Like mail with the US Post Office or DMV? Because I know those two are connected. So what kicks it back and say like, oh, no, they have a different address?
I really don't know that. I can find out and get back to you. I don't know what kicks it back, but what it was explained to me by our staff is the student may have just recently moved and they have a new address, but that address has not been changed. That's what I understand.
So can I recommend, suggest please that why don't we go back and come back at another point and we'll come back with the stepwise progression of the pieces we're doing. The one piece we know we have for sure, because I was CC'd on the email, is we have agreement from the state that at a very high level, we can remove that very first question about residency. It's really about then reporting on the back end. So we at least have that part, and then we have to figure out the mechanics.
So they've already approved it in Congress.
They have said to us, you can do this, and then I think they got a little stuck of, oh, wait a minute, we need this for other purposes, and so that we're going through those mechanics, but we can come back with those pieces if that's okay. If that's all right.
Thank you.
Okay.
Next slide, please.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Can
Director
we
Brooks.
put a timeline to this? Because this was, all of the questions that we asked tonight to this issue was asked when the issue was first brought up. And we got a hard answer that it's required by the state, and that's why we couldn't change it.
Well, if I can interpret what's here, and tell me if I'm interpreting this correctly, is it was a hard requirement by the state, and we approached the state and said, can we do something different? And now they've said yes. Is that the fact?
I'm here at a point in time when we asked and they said yes. I was not here at the point in time when we asked before, so I can't.
Right. When they said yes was a recent development that we could. And our IT department is actually working on how to completely remove the report. I mean, the application process and only report to the state. So the state requirement for reporting is still there. Just they're saying you can choose not to put it on the application form. So if you want to put a date on it, I would say fall of 2024. 2025.
2025 is next,
FA,
this fall.
yeah, fall 2024, FA 2025,
So next fall.
next fall, yes.
Change will be in place or?
That's what I'm thinking. Not I'm thinking, I'm saying so because I know where we are in the process. We're very close, but spring semester has started.
How about the summer?
Right.
Can we get it done for the summer?
Right, we can get it done for summer, but traditionally we don't offer summer courses,
And to that end too, in terms of reg cycles, right? We begin summer, fall registration in April, May. So that's the timing of when this needs to be ready, right? So when he says that, it's for the student enrolled then, but we need to have it ready for students at that point in time. So that's 2 to 3 months from now.
Okay, so we're not gonna first be implementing this next fall. We're gonna be implementing it in 2 to 3 months so that the next registration cycle has this problem solved.
Yeah.
No, that would be the goal, but again, if you give me just let me step back, let's do some check. I want to work with our IT department to figure out what it is, what hiccups they have.
Okay.
We have agreement may not mean ease of process. So if I can do that and come back and even provide it either via email or in the next update meeting, if that's okay.
I think we wanna put this on the agenda for next time.
Okay.
But if we can get a report that's happy between now and then, maybe we won't need that further. Right? If we've got answers and a timeline for actual usage. Okay, thank you.
Next slide. This is another win. We have testing. We were fortunate to have an assessment technician added to.
Peter, can you do one back? We're on 5 testing, I think.
You're showing 6, we need 5.
There we go. Thank you, sir.
Right, so, yeah. So, one of the issues was inadequate pre and post testing. And the staff to meet the growth. And this was predominantly in ELL. And so, we have director here, who has given us one assessment technician and has promised there will be an assessment technician in each campus moving forward. Assessment technician.
Director Tanner is the director for admissions and testing. She's sitting in the back of the room. That's what he was referring to.
Thank
So-
you.
Right. So in addition to that, long-term, in our FY 25 AEFL is the grant that we get from the state to assist us run this program. We have indicated in that application that we want a funded assessment technician.
So that's in your long-term recommendations.
That's in the long-term recommendation.
The very top one, long-term recommendation. So in addition to the one you see in green, Dr. Isahako is requesting potentially, and again, this relates to those funds that we get related to what we call WIOA or AFL, the AFL grant. That's what he's looking for. So we're adding layers to testing, which is a substantive part of actually all of CE, but predominantly ELL. I mean, it is at the beginning through all the way to the end. It's repeated testing and reporting. And Director Baker is nodding vigorously. I think she's aware. So, but we want to make sure we've done this correctly. And I think going backward on this, having come new to the college, a lot of colleges changed their entire testing process probably a decade ago, having a lot to do with minimizing the standard testing procedure. As a part of that, the college looked at that also with when you implemented guided pathways. We made changes to our entire testing team and process. And so I think perhaps there was some overlay of what that team was doing and its relationship broadly, because Nicole's team, Dr. Tanner's team, 9 assessment technicians. Thank you. So remember that number. Serves broadly all the campuses, and then serves broadly testing for all students coming in the door for everything. And for a long period of time, though, because this is so specialized, ELL testing was managed though in combination with faculty. because it is a very specialized function on pre and post. Now, Dr. Tanner, we're working on that process right now, though, as we're bringing these things back together, her 9 assessment technicians, the potential they have to serve this particular pathway in ELL, and the combination of what those assessment techs do. You see one added, that's from the green is from Dr. Tanner's team. You see the one in long-term recommendations coming from Dr. Isahaku, really about management. And then we're going to assess, as we brought those two things together, the role of the testing team, their locations, where they're housed, whether they work during the day, at night, you've heard that before. What campuses based on the percentage of service, you've heard Dr. Isahaku mention that earlier today. And then where they support ELL, and then in the middle, really once the students started, they're moving through the course and then they move to final. That's really the faculty member's role. And so Dr. Isahaku has done a lot of work on faculty members have picked up testing in between, sometimes on the front, and assistants have picked that up. I think part of our work right now is clarifying all those steps, those processes, who owns what piece. That's why Dr. Tanner is here tonight. So we can just be attentive to our students who are asking for it. And again, we did have a gap. Dr. Tanner, forgive me. Do you remember how many vacant positions you've had in as assessment techs?
Prior to the
As we move to my time with you,
6.
vacancies that you've filled one and you're still pending the others.
Right now, we have 2.5 vacancies that we're
Okay.
still in process.
Okay. And as a process for hiring, it does take some time, and this tends to be a fairly low wage. And so we've been working on bringing her team up broadly for the college to its full capacity. They serve this population at the same time. So we've been working on that in addition to then serving this CE population. Sorry if I gave you a lot of complexity to that response, but we're working very hard on this one because we want to be responsive to the student.
And the testing is a state requirement, so it's part of the disbursement we get from the state. If how many students have made a skills gain. So the pre-test is taken into consideration and the post-test is done. If a student makes a skills gain, we get points for that. If you don't make a skills gains, we don't. So we're very careful about that because this is part of our bottom line.
Is the skills gain in this case language acquisition?
Yes, absolutely, yes, yeah. So if a student moves from level 1 to level 2, yeah, that will be a skills gain, right? All right, next slide, please. Transition and retention was item number 6. How many students do we transition from post-secondary, from secondary to post-secondary education? That is from CE, community education, which is composed of GED, HSCD, everything, including ELL. How many students move from that level to post-secondary programs? This is also one of the funding criteria that we have through our OBF, outcomes-based funding number 4 from the state. And there is a specific formula that the state uses to collect this data. Most of the time, this data is historic. It's a year behind. So we're still waiting for the numbers for 23, 24. It's not available yet.
So this one is yellow up here, but green on our. Sorry.
Green as in the bottom one?
Oh, no, the top one.
The top one is in progress.
In progress, okay.
Yeah. The yellow is, oh, go ahead. Meetings happen fall semester. Right, oh, in the fall, yes, okay, yeah.
I was saying, because it's green on ours, which will indicate.
On the top one.
The top one.
Oh, okay.
Right, right.
I wasn't looking at, here, so that's why.
Right, sorry, yeah. All right, next slide. Marketing and recruitment. This is another place where we have made some significant progress. Tony, thank you. Tony and his team they have done quite a bit in the short term. You can see the green. They have paid ads actually out there for GED, HSCD, and ESL, ELL students in the market. So when I told this faculty about this, they said, no, we really don't need paid ads. We are having students is a kind of program that too many students are in here and they tell their friends and relatives and they come in here. So paid ads are good for us, so everybody knows, but without the ads, you can see the growth. So this will increase the number significantly. Any question?
Do we do any marketing or advertising which begins with an introduction to our desire that the student not only come and get the ELL, but that they are thinking from the beginning that once they've reached a certain level, that they should expect, they should be ready to move into the regular course curriculum?
So the short answer is yes, that the language that we have talks about the possibilities that this opens, including further education.
Okay.
We do have the statutory requirements from the state that we can't like turn someone away if they're not intending to pursue college, as I understand it, but the language talks about it as a progression to access more opportunity.
Okay, great, thank you.
I'd like to add one layer, interesting layer, is our transition students. A majority of those who transition are GED HSC students. They're the majority who transition from secondary to post-secondary. We have 3 categories of ELL students. And they come here with a very clear indication and we code them as such. Some come here because they already have a degree. They just want to learn English to help them at work. Some come here with no intention to go to post-secondary, but when they start school here, they may change their mind. But initially, they just say, I just want to learn English so I can function in the community. The younger students are the ones that traditionally want to learn English and transition to post-secondary. That's the experience that we have. But people change over time. You know, they say, I'm just here to learn English, but then they realize, oh, there are so many opportunities here, I can take advantage of them. Let me just continue going. Or I came with a profession, but wow, there are so many other things here that I could do that are of interest to me. So I was a plumber, I want to be an engineer or something. So we see those changes over time.
I'll go over real quick. I believe, I'm not sure if it was done in open comments or if one of you guys told us that certain students from ELL start to generate towards different programs. Can we couple the marketing with that if possible? That'll be.
That's a EIT program.
Oh, the IET program. Yeah, it's in the long term. We actually have a grant funded position as an IET coordinator. IET is integrated education and training.
Okay.
So while they are learning ELL, they are also learning office tech or intro to health sciences. So we have those programs, and it's also we lead the state in the number of students who are in those programs. So we're pretty up there, and we're growing more programs. We're adding entrepreneurship. We're adding real estate, and one more that I forgot. We're adding additional programs to our IET program.
Yes.
I don't know if there's a way to measure this or note this, but you mentioned that a lot of this with that paid advertising it's more word of mouth is where they tell their friends, family, and that's what brings them in. But I wonder if it's different for those different programs, GED, HSED versus ELL, and what's leading to that increased enrollment. So. Gotcha.
Funny, you should just.
I
Yeah.
can add briefly to the integrated education and training. So we're actually building out materials, working with the grant funded coordinator right now to kind of build that out. And that could at some point come into the mix of the paid marketing. With respect to what was said about, the ESL, we could look at, and we're continuing these discussions, could we shift some of those dollars to push the transition more directly, take a list of the students in the ESL and put the transition. So that's all being evaluated. And then specifically what we heard from faculty is, and this is reflected in how things are planned out, but that there is greater need for marketing beyond word of mouth for the GED HSE. And so that's what is in there.
And just add of note too, when you think about his previous slide, when he talks about transition and retention, just think about the number of staff. You've heard staff that we have in the roles, right? So we do have, for example, 3 advisors that are dedicated to ELL. And so to Director Burris's question, it isn't necessarily even IET. It could be as a part of that larger president's goal, not even just GED. How are potentially ELL students interested to progress into a pathway at some point? I think I remember I was at Walker Square for so many presentations. I don't remember which one it was, but I shook hands with a woman who was not of high school age who had that experience. And she had come back enough times that she had then gotten into a program of which she had an associate's degree and she was going into the workforce. And so those opportunities do exist. That's part of our efforts as well. Dr. Baker.
In terms of the word of mouth in the community, you know, it's interesting. I told Dr. Martin about this. I ran into the alderman for that area at an event, who's also the president of the common council. And he shared with me that National Avenue is going to be torn up this year, right? And it's because they're going to make it 2 lanes for safety reasons. And I guess the communities are excited. But he looked at me, he said, that'd be a great opportunity for MATC to look at the storefront aspect of our building. Because really our door faces the highway, you know, and yeah, and a parking lot, and creating something that is community facing, that people in the community see and can identify with. And it's, you know, I'm just talking, I don't have a facility plan in front of me where I can say, don't do this and do this. But I think that it speaks to some of the opportunity that we may have because the street's going to be ripped up anyway. And what can we do to be telling the community that we're there and that we are offering services that are, you know, of value. I thought it was a cool idea.
I'm in the academic area, so I'm not competent enough to answer these questions, right?
He used to serve on this board at one time.
Yes,
so
I
he
know.
has
Yes.
He has tremendous interest in the college, and that facility in particular happened during his tenure, and he was instrumental in making it happen.
He attended the last citizenship ceremony we had at Walker Square, so we talked. Next slide.
This is here and it feels like a repeat, with my glasses on, but we wanted to make sure it was here. You really see some of the same language about one stop, but we also want to make sure we're, you know, representing that which CEAP has brought forward, because while you haven't seen all their total recommendations, these are ours that we've summarized. One of theirs specifically has been a restatement I've been present of. We want to be a pathway. And so I was able to work with them a little bit about really what does that mean and why are you asking for that? And 2 predominant things came up. One really has to do with space, which is we haven't necessarily identified a location of which students can signify and say, well, that's where you go for community education. And 2, an honest question was from the faculty or from that group, we're not sure if we get all the resources. So, and I think their thought was, well, pathways get resources. So I think I want it represented here. You can see that we're trying to pay attention to that. Even when you heard about that 2-step application process, we need an obvious space. We need human intervention. We need to connect to them. They want to see that there's a space they can engage in. So we're doing that at Walker's. We're going to look at the other spaces. The other thing I'll comment to you on, and this speaks back to you know, having my head in the original research and guided pathways all the way back to 2012. So I don't know if you use this language here, but there are on-ramps to pathways. So using the language from, and community education is an on-ramp into pathways. And that's something I think highly resonates with that team. We just need to figure out how to reinforce that. And to some extent, your questions today also represent that. Like, how do you transition a student into the other? It's an on-ramp into all of our programs. So we want to represent it here so you can at least see it from the CEAP folks who were participating.
All right.
Next slide.
I think it's.
Yeah. I wanted to show the end.
We are going to hope and expect to hear from you again next month. On progress on all these fronts, and perhaps you can have a conversation with Dr. Martin about how we should flesh out what's happening on National Avenue and find our place in it. I don't know if you're the right ones to do that or not, but I leave it to the decider over here. Okay.
With specificity, I will ensure though, too, we'll go back to the very specific question though about residency and the details.
Yeah.
So we have a good understanding the mechanics.
Yes.
Prior to the next board meeting, if possible, if not the next board meeting, but prior
to, if possible.
Okay, and
Yeah.
then National Avenue as well.
Right.
Am I clear?
We're gonna discuss that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any further questions for tonight?
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Nice evening.
Is there any new business?
Have
First.
to, first, the one with open comments, I believe it was Sitlali last time that asked for us to get an update on the West Town Green situation, especially as far as safety goes. I didn't see that on the agenda. Perhaps thought we would see it in the president's report. Can we make sure that we get an update on the agenda next time so we can delve into some of the continued presence regarding those issues there? Second, there have been like several emails that's been coming to the board regarding the culture at the college. And while I did get some responses back from the college, legal counsel, it has not assuaged my concerns at all. So I want to know where we were on like ad hoc committees, so we can kind of look into some of those issues before bringing on a new president.
Okay, so I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, we're gonna be talking a little bit at least about this in closed session.
Yes.
And so why don't we have those conversations and see where we need to go after that?
Okay.
Okay,
And, okay, yeah, I'll go with that.
any other new business?
Just following up on the open sections, it worries me that the students feel that we're retaliating by doing the search on their apartments because of their last comment, so that's a huge red flag for me. I know we got an email with a few words about what's happening there, but that's very worrisome to me. I mean, that's a.
Let me add to this, and what I'm hearing from the individuals that have been appearing in front of us about the issues here is that there is a property manager, I don't know who that is, that they don't trust, they think does not listen to them, they think does not give them the straight talk, what's going on. Two, they don't think things are changing. Three, I'm concerned that this really isn't the forum where this needs to be addressed. Yes, it's a function of the college, but this is a property management sort of landlord tenant thing, and we need to get the communication about this together.
Point of order, Mr. Chair. So just in new business, I think we have suggestions for what may come forward as new business. And then we would trust your astute judgment on this, to work with the administration in terms of whether this comes to us as a memo of sorts or board item or an explanation of the situation.
Fair point. So I do want to explore that as to how we should be involved with this and how we should address this. So we'll look into that.
But on new business, we have several times had people come to us on issues of compensation. We did again today. And whether it is, questions on not knowing how compensation works, or questions about whether we're doing it right or wrong, what we promised, didn't promise. I think the board needs to have conversation about this. So I'd like to see that going forward. Look at the
I agree
structure.
with that.
Yeah.
I think it's important to realize it.
Anything else? Anything from the directors online? I don't think we have any.
Erica?
Erica is there. Okay,
I am here, but I do not have anything.
all right, thank you.
Mhm.
All right, is there a motion to go into closed session?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I move that the district board convene into closed session pursuant to section 19.85, parent 1, parent C, and parent G of the Wisconsin statutes to discuss item 10A, President's semi-annual performance evaluation, to consider performance evaluation data of the president over whom the board exercises responsibility, and item 10B, personnel matters and legal advice. The board may reconvene into open session to take action on matters discussed in closed session under items 10.A and 10.B if necessary.
Is there a second?
Second.
Need a roll call?
Director Ramos. Aye. Director Moore-Mukunde. Director Najib.
Excused.
Director Owen Moore. Aye. Director Pence.
Aye.
Director Baker.
Aye.
Director Burris. Aye. Director Gates.
Aye.
Aye. Let's take. Is 5 minutes enough? Do we need 10 minutes? Before we come back and, okay, we'll make it 10 minutes and we'll start closed session. Thank you. And thank you for.
Yes, sorry.